2 billion rand loan that we had at our disposal as the city that could have assisted us with the rollouts of many of our plans, including the plan that we're talking about now. The fact that we could not do that because of politics, pure petty politics, is really unfortunate for our 6 million residents. The fact that we, up to this day, have not been able to appoint a city manager. By now, we should have had an administrative head in a substantive position. We still don't. We still have an acting city manager from the day we took over until today. For your information, we had a recruitment report that was ready for this council meeting that got rejected by the speaker at programming. It couldn't even serve at programming. It couldn't even be discussed. So that is the kind of politics at play that's affecting the health of the administration and ultimately service delivery to our residents. And it's really, really unfortunate. And I pray that sense must prevail at some point and that we must focus on our residents' needs and we must put politics aside and allow the city to run. In terms of the debt in Soweto, yes, so it's very important to contextualize debt. And it's important for me to say that the city from time to time writes off debt that it has to write off. For instance, some debt prescribes and then you can't collect it. It's irrecoverable and then you have to write it off. People die, you have to write off the debt. There could be economic crisis, for instance, economic repression, where you have to consider where people are and their ability to service their debt and so on. Our approach to the Soweto debt is that it must be approached in a similar manner. Now, you'll recall that the Joburg multi-party government had a debt rehabilitation program that we implemented and even extended when we came into power. And what that did is it said to our ratepayers or those owing us that we're going to write off X amount, a small fraction of your debt. In exchange, we're going to observe you for a set period of time to look at your rate-paying behavior. Now, that was an incentive to change the culture of non-payment. So we don't believe that you must just do a blanket write-off, because at the end of the write-off must be a culture change so that we don't sit 10 years down the line with the same problem. And so I would expect Eskom to approach any write-off with that level of responsibility. And it's a responsibility to our ratepayers who feel that they're carrying the burden of the revenue that must be collected from everybody for as long as we harbor such tendencies of people not paying for services. And of course, there'll always be the indigent, and we have a responsibility as the city to make sure that they have access to our expanded social package, which is a package of services and certain rebates that can be passed on to those who say we genuinely cannot afford to pay, we're unemployed, or we don't earn enough to be able to afford. So it can't be a simplistic approach where we just write off billions of rands without doing our responsible part to ensure that at the end of such a process, people are rehabilitated, people are better ratepayers, and that we're able to collect the revenue that we need to continue providing services to our people. I will ask City Power to respond to the security question, and MMC. Aviwe asks about what happened in the negotiations. So the DA has appointed certain spokespersons to talk to what has transpired in the last few weeks with the negotiations. I'm not one of those spokespersons. John Steenhuisen is, Soli Malachi is, Celia Brink is, as well as Solim Simanga. So if you want any information on what transpired in the negotiations, I'd like to please refer you to those individuals, and they'll be able to answer to your questions. Thanks. MMC and MD.
Thank you very much, Yem, and good morning, colleagues. I'm glad nobody wanted to know who I'm married to. But if you need to know, I'll also share that with you. It is a grave concern that our technicians are being attacked. These are ordinary working men. I mean, they are people that goes out there to fix electricity. They're electricians. They are unarmed. They do not have, skills to fend off attackers. Yet they are being targeted by criminals. In terms of robbery, what's also very serious, our CEO will share with you that, It's bad that our technicians end up being hospitalized in a coma because of the attacks. We see cable thieves, vandals now heavily armed. They don't come with knives anymore. They don't come with spades. They carry machine guns when they do their criminal deeds. So these are the situations we have to get used to in terms of cable thieves and vandals. So what we are doing to protect our personnel, of course, we want to intensify the security deployment. Our people are always very important to us. They are what makes up city power. They make up the city. They bring us services. They go out there day and night to repair the faults. And it is important, it's in our infrastructure. I'll allow our CEO to share with you, but unfortunately there's some very sensitive information in terms of our strategy to protect our infrastructure that we are not able to share with you because we don't want the criminals to know. As soon as they know about it, they will know how to counter those strategies and then of course get to our infrastructure and steal the cables and whatever valuable spare parts are there. So CEO, can I then hand over to you?
Thank you, MNC. And thanks for the question in terms of security of our personnel and infrastructure. Indeed, it's quite sad for us that we woke up one day to one of our own ending up in a coma in hospital because he was stoned simply because he went to do a meter audit and to do disconnections. We find our technicians being robbed and most times at gunpoint. And it also makes it quite difficult to go and restore power because at times the tensions are so high. Just last week, going on to Road Depot, the team couldn't even go to install the mini substation that they were supposed to install so that they can bring power to residents. So I am thankful for the question because this then gets the message out there that the communities that we are serving have to do their part in partnering with us, in protecting our personnel so that they can then get to do what they need to do. So we thank you for that. We do have plans internally. Obviously, there's concerns in terms of you can never have enough money on your own as an entity to deal with crime of this nature. And it is for that reason that the partnership with SEPs and other security agencies is quite critical. But we've got plans and some funds have been moved around to allow us to be able to do something as a matter of agency in terms of dealing with these criminals. Thank you.
We'll take another round of questions.
Okay. My question, Madam Mayor, is that, what gives you the confidence that you will still be mayor come tomorrow? I mean, looking at the numbers, and this is a numbers game, you've just lost 8 seats in terms of 8 votes from TA because there's this, you're not understanding each other, yourselves and PA. And for City Power, how much are you still owed? I know that there was an operation to recover funds from big businesses that are owing City Power. And have you quantified in terms of the amount that you are owed? How much have you been able to recover from these operations that you are conducting? And how much more do you still need to recover? Which areas are problematic areas, if I may call them that? Because we know that, for instance, from what you heard is that, for example, in Alexander, only 4% of the entire Alexander are paying for electricity.
Alex?
Thank you. Just on my colleague's query there, we joined that operation last week, and there were several big businesses that allegedly owed quite a lot of money, including a hotel, who had their electricity cut, and in the case of the hotel, very publicly cut, only to find out that there's an issue with their billing system. They had actually paid and, kind of had been exposed as having not paid. Is there an issue with the billing system? What's happening with how much do people actually owe? Can we be certain that the money that we think they owe is what they owe? Thank you.
Madam?
Kadel Sokoto from Kai FM. Mayor, in terms of the vandalism of infrastructure, we've seen a number of arrests. You have notified us of some of the interventions taken when there are issues at substations. But I would imagine this is not a sustainable method of protecting infrastructure. So have there been collaborations between the city and I guess the police ministry in initiatives that will protect infrastructure? And also owing to, I mean, the message you've sent, I think it was this week, last week, about the new prepaid systems, and that personnel would have to go to residential places and people would have to allow people onto their premises, and this is also a safety concern. But in terms of protecting the infrastructure, number one, what interventions or discussions are taking place with yourselves and I guess provincial and national government, as well as the systems that you're trying to roll out, the operations in terms of meter audits and prepaid systems? How do we ensure that it's safe for people to allow officials into their homes?
Can we take one at the back there?
It's Ahmed Kaji from Newsroom Africa. Few questions to the Mayor, MMC, and the City of Johannesburg. Just on the policy around electricity going to homes, the controlling of that for geysers and swimming pools. Has the public been given any input on these policies for that? For the infrastructure fund, how far are we with that? You said if they received the funds today to take around 6 months for that. When exactly can the City of Johannesburg residents expect that infrastructure fund to start off? To the MMC and CEO, what's the response been from the South African Police Service to protect infrastructure and fighting cable theft? The Mayor said it's an organized syndicate. And then just finally, we had seen last week in Alexandra during the electricity cuts by City of Johannesburg officials, we had seen quite a lot of illegal electricity connections. What exactly is the solution to that, given the high electricity bills facing the City of Johannesburg and City Council? Thanks.
Start with you in the next round. Over to Executive Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks again for those questions. Tate Bakhadi, you're asking me about numbers in council and how sure I am that we will defeat this motion. If I look at when we started losing numbers from the 140 that we had, where we could say we've got a stable government, I think this happened around September last year. It's January this year and we're still in government. So this says that beyond the numbers, there's so much more at play in the background. And yes, as much as we can never be sure, we continue to move in faith. And each day we trust that we'll live to serve another day. And we continue to trust even today. Okay, City Power will talk to how much they owed, how much they've recovered, and which problem areas there are, and the issue of the hotel in Sandton as well, and the billing system, what's happening with that. Katlego asks about vandalism of infrastructure and how we're collaborating with the SAPs. So our collaboration with the SAPs goes beyond just protection of infrastructure. We are working together with the SAPs on our city safety strategy, which is profiling the city of Johannesburg, understanding what the safety and security threats of the city are, what sort of mitigation is required, what sort of resources will be required, and where those resources currently lie. So some resources will be within the JMPD, some will be within the SAPs, some will be within the Hawks, some will be within private security companies, and the likes, community policing forums and the likes. So it's really about being organized, understanding who our stakeholders are, who are responsible for safety and security, and being able to collaborate our efforts so that we don't duplicate but rather strengthen each other's efforts, and we're able to do more with less. So that work is happening beyond just what's happening with our infrastructure. However, there has been a focus on infrastructure protection where we've entered into a partnership and a collaborative strategy with the SAPs, the Hawks, the SIU. We started doing joint operations. This was supported by both the Minister of Police and as well as the MEC for Community Safety in Gauteng. We worked very well together. We started doing joint operations where we went into communities looking for our infrastructure, asking questions, and so on. We've deployed technology, we've deployed drones as an example. We've done a lot together, and these joint operations really yielded fruit in that we started to see a decrease in the number of incidents of theft and vandalism, and we'd just like to go back and say, let's bolster our efforts once again with load shedding where it is now, and the association between load shedding and the occurrence of these crimes. We do need to ramp up our efforts, and that's the conversation that we're starting now. City Power will talk more about the safety and security plans, but as MMC has said, we can't divulge everything because it's important for the strategy to succeed that we don't give away the strategy. Newsroom Africa, in terms of public input, I think the MD will speak to that. When can this be rolled out? I did say in the statement that we don't have 400 million rands lying around. It's really been difficult, particularly with not being able to secure the kind of funding that we need to secure for the city to run. And I spoke about the politics, irresponsible politicking that's really putting service delivery in danger. Without us being able to bring in funds, we will not be able to roll out our plans. And so we're hoping that sanity will prevail. We're hoping that the politics will stop and that people will wake up to the reality that they too are affected by load shedding. They too are affected by what's going on. And it does not make sense for us to continue in the manner that we're continuing. We'll continue to appeal to reason and hope that we'll be able to bring in the funds. There's a lot of goodwill. We are working with various global agencies. The FMDV, for instance, has come forward and said we can help you put together an investment conference where we can bring in various development finance institutes, and you can present your plans to them, and you can get partners to help you roll out your plans. So there's a lot of goodwill out there. We just need to really get through the politics and hope that sanity will prevail. The response from SAPS, as I've said, we've had a great response from law enforcement in the past and on an ongoing basis. We just need to go back and say, load shedding is where it is. Let's please bolster our efforts so that we protect our infrastructure and our personnel. MMC, MD.
Thank you. I will touch on Alex's question about the hotel, then I hand over to City Power, then I'll also take a bit of a response on the Ripple Relay Unit from Newsroom Africa. SAP's response, I just want to maybe add a bit to what EM has said. Of course, very important, the legal connections. Without a doubt, there's always going to be an issue when we arrive at a particular customer's doorsteps to say you have not paid, we have to disconnect you. But please also don't forget that there's always been that engagement prior there too. So if they don't take the responsibility of ensuring that their accounts are in order, in this case, Alex, that the hotel in fact does owe the city of Joburg. As much as they may say that they don't owe, in fact they do owe. They came back to us to say, don't say the wrong figure, but also don't say the right figure. And it becomes difficult for us to say, well, what do we then say? Our decision was that we will go out and be honest and say that you do owe. But certainly with those disconnections, that if the problem's on our side, the city of Joburg, we will certainly rectify that. And I've got assurance from the team that we'll minimize and ensure that those mistakes don't happen again. But I can assure you in this case that this particular customer does owe us, the city of Joburg. As to how much is the owing, how much will be collected, City Power, you answered that. Ripple Relay Unit, Newsroom Africa. In fact, it has been installed across the city. I was out there seeing a live demonstration of how the customers' users are being switched off remotely. In fact, the customers wouldn't normally know because it doesn't really create anything for them to feel. But we want our residents and customers to cooperate when we install those units. It must be, a mutual cooperation. It does assist with the city's network. We'll save a lot of electricity. You can imagine, people running geysers 24 hours, whilst we don't need them on. So that is something that we certainly would go out and engage with new customers that we need to install these units. There was a question about City Power technicians coming to your premises. You may feel the sense of insecurity knowing that someone's coming to check my meter or because you can't identify them. In our statement, it was released as to how to identify City Power employees, please do ask for their identity card, the appointment cards. At the back, there's different colored coded. So if it's black, there's a certain type of category of employees, purple, blue, and there's always a number at the back of the card that our residents can phone to verify and say, I've got a City Power person at my gate, he's got a card, his name is XYZ, can I verify this person? Of course, our colleagues at City Power will do that for you. And I can assure you that our City Power employees don't just rock up and do nothing. There's always something that they need to do. And if there's any residents are unsure, they feel unsafe, please do call in to verify their IDs. SAP's response, and again, Ian, we got a communication from one of the local CPFs. I must commend SAPS and law enforcement to say that they do assist the city a lot. They do go out there and fight the criminals. But I think more needs to be done. And through the engagement with the executive mayor in the city of Joburg, we'll certainly ensure that we bring as hands on deck as possible, as many hands on deck as possible. But referring back to this particular incident is that the statement was released by a particular CPF to say that on the day before they arrested this criminal breaking into one substation, it was then handed over to the police, and the next day they arrested the same criminal at the same substation, stealing from the substation again. So that tells you something that these criminals will continuously go back to this infrastructure until it's been completely destroyed and stolen. And we've got good response from our CPFs, community patroller groups, but we really need to do much more. These incidents happen and these thieves live among us in our communities. Unless we step forward and say something about it, it will simply continue. Illegal connection is something that will continue, will not stop. I think, again, quoting our executive mayor, it's not politics. Electricity is nothing political about it. Same with stealing electricity. We need to go out and ensure that this kind of illegal behavior is put to a stop. But at the same time, we are not, saying that we don't care about those kind of fraud. That's why in the mayor's statement that she referred to, there must be equality to access. And this is our firmly belief that electricity is not a privilege, it's not a luxury, but it is a right. Our residents must enjoy it, it must be uninterrupted, and certainly it must be affordable. So that's our stance in terms of illegal connections. We will continue to go out and remove those illegal connections, but at the same time we will find ways to ensure that our residents, especially in the poorer areas, will find electricity in their sockets when we install these. Where we can't supply electricity immediately, we got plans in place already that we ensure that we have high mast solar lighting. So at least there will be street lights coming up to brighten the street at night. So these are the interventions that we are deploying. May I then ask you to take the technical questions? Thank you.
No, thank you, MMC. I think bottom line is our customers have to pay for our electricity. So we are finding ourselves at the moment, our total number of customers is about 380,000. In the first half of the year, which means July to December, we had a collection target. We were supposed to have collected about 9.8 billion rands. But in terms of what actually came through, it was 8 billion rands, which meant there's a 1.8 billion rand shortfall. And that's not enough. We need all our customers to pay so that we can give them the service that they deserve. But we do acknowledge that the willingness to pay factor is diminishing, especially with load shedding. And it is for that reason that we are here to do what we can to ensure that their lights are on at the end of the day. And the main reason why you get some customers also curing their bill, such as the hotel, is I think they find the tariff to be really high. And as such, everybody gets to say that this cannot possibly be my bill. We get that quite a lot. And if I can just share some numbers, I'm sure you know by now that over a couple of years, we ourselves have experienced a 300% tariff increase. And obviously it means our customers have experienced the same. So everybody is getting to query their bill and saying, but is this really my bill? But it is for that reason that we have reorganized ourselves internally. We are reviewing our own business model so that we can do what we can to shield our customers from the astronomical costs in terms of the tariffs from Eskom side. We have the view that if we get to purchase power from IPPs, that would also assist us quite a lot, hence the work on our business model. But we've also gone a step further to review our own operating model so that we serve the customers better and we're able to address their queries. And we don't just go on a mode of wanting to cut them off without engaging with them. And it is for that reason that we now have fully established service delivery centers which are established to handle the queries of our customers. If you do have a query, we acknowledge that, we solve that, but if you do owe us, we need to ensure that you pay and we disconnect you. So it's the same with the issue of the hotel. They have paid us something to date, but they still owe us. And if they do not pay us, we will definitely be cutting them off. Thank you.
Yes, so we'll start with you. This is the last round of questions.
Thank you. I'll just try and be brief because a lot of the questions have already been answered. But I just wanted to know from City Power in terms of, responses, so customer services or care. We see time and time again people on social media, and I mean, I don't know how much sort of the size of that sample group is, but people complaining about delay in response to their queries. Specifically, recently I've seen, especially from communities like North Riding, seemingly, they load shed, the power doesn't come back on, according to the schedule, and they, claim that you take, ages to get back to them, and also just the service they receive from your customer agents is just, to the lowest it can be. So I just wanted to find comment on that as well, and then also the status of the Consulate General of Nigeria. You know that they went the diplomatic route, essentially after being switched off. If you could kindly comment on that. And then also in terms of the power dynamics that be in the political sphere in the city, the EFF has seemingly, appeared to be the kingmakers in a lot of your coalitions. Although they're not a part of the coalition, but we saw in Ekurhuleni they essentially helped get Mayor Tanya Campbell back into the seat. Any sense that you're feeling as to perhaps where they could be swayed at this particular point in time? We saw Mayor Campbell actually thank them for bringing her back into her mayoral seat. And I think also the issue of the loan. We know, of course, the loan, Madam Mayor, was rejected. Obviously, the MMC for Finance is not here, but I'm sure you have a sense of where the finances in terms of the city are currently sitting. Thank you very much.
2 minutes.
Mayor, just one simple one. Is it true that Colleen Makubele yesterday sent you a suitcase with a note asking you to pack up your bags?
Where did you get this?
Last questions. Going once, going twice. Over to you, Executive Mayor.
All right, so I'll take care of the political questions, and I'll ask City Power to then respond to the rest. The EFF as kingmakers, yes, indeed. When I was elected mayor, the EFF voted and added to the numbers that needed to elect a mayor. And we've seen that play out in various forms at various times. We are never sure because we don't have a formal coalition with the EFF. We can never say at any given point, this is how they will decide to use their votes. They've got 29 seats out of our 270 seats in our council, and that is a significant number. And we can only hope and pray that they use it responsibly, and I hope that they will use it responsibly today and tomorrow as well. Very grateful as well for each time that they have done so, and we hope that that will prevail. The DBSA loan being rejected and where we are in terms of the city's finances, yes, maybe just to summarize our funding mix as the city. So we get funding from own revenue. That's collecting money from our ratepayers. And unfortunately, our revenue collection is not where it's supposed to be for various reasons. A lot of our customers are really dealing with a lot. Some are still recovering from COVID. Some are dealing with the effects of even just the war in Ukraine, what's happening economically across the globe. And so we're seeing that disposable income is becoming less and less, and we're competing, with other essentials for that money that we need to bring into the city. Now, that means that our biggest revenue generator, which is own revenue and own cash, is at risk. Two, we get money from national and provincial government through various grants, subsidies, and that's pretty much fixed. It gets gazetted and it gets decided per year what you're going to get as a municipality. So from national through equitable share it comes through, and from province as and when there's delegated functions we receive something, but that there isn't really space to maneuver there. You know, so it's really not a space that we have much control over. But what we're doing, and I've said this, that we will be starting to deal with unfunded mandates because we are carrying responsibility that does not belong to us. Over the years, we've funded services and that we're not supposed to be funding. A good example is community development. So arts, sports, recreation is actually a national provincial competency. And if you look at what we're investing in that annually, and you look at what national and province are getting and what they're actually investing in, it's really unfair that as the city, we're the ones that are carrying the biggest load, and yet we are the most underfunded. In fact, we receive almost no funding for it. Province gives us a stipend, if you like, but it's nothing compared to what we actually invest in. So those conversations must happen, and we must do the right thing. The National Treasury is aware of this. I've asked them to intervene. We're concluding our collection of that data across the city, identifying all unfunded mandates, and we're going to be going after that money, or we may have to give back the mandate and focus on what's core. So those are some of the interventions. What we're doing currently is we're rebasing our budgets. Which means that if our budget was X amount, we're actually reducing it because we have to be alive to the challenges that we're faced with, political challenges that lead to irresponsible decision making in council, that precludes us bringing in the money that we need through loans, as an example. We need to be alive to those challenges and have a more realistic budget that factors those risks into the equation. So that's the exercise we've been busy with for the last 2 weeks. We've been sitting with all portfolios, going through their budgets, looking at where we can cut so that our budget is more realistic. But we continue to hope that sanity will prevail, that we'll be able to bring in the money that we need, we'll be able to deal with unfunded mandates. But I think more importantly, we really continue to appeal to those who owe the city money. That's the one area where we have more control, and while we understand that people have challenges, we're also aware that there are those with capacity to pay who simply choose not to, and we hope that they will do the responsible thing. This 401 million rands that City Power needs is really nothing compared to what some people owe us, and if a few big ratepayers that owe us money can pay money, City Power would be able to roll out this plan. So we really appeal to all who owe the city money to understand how important it is for service delivery. Do I want to discuss the bag from the speaker? Yes, I received a bag. Was it yesterday or the day before? The day before. It was delivered by the speaker's office. I didn't see the note, so I'm not aware of the note. But yes, I did receive a bag. It was strange, very strange, I must say. But it came through nonetheless. And now we'll leave it at that.
Hey, Ian, if I could just answer the turnaround time. I want to share some figures with you. So in December last year, City Power was experiencing over 5,000 open calls for outages. So that was at the highest. At the one stage, I think we may even have hit 7,000. So just to understand the open calls, how it's being made up is that if you have an area outage, a lot of the residents will call in, but for one single outage. So that obviously boosts the number, but even that we will still attend to every single one. Now I want to show these figures share with you to see how far we've come from that 7,000, 5,000. On the 21st of January, we were looking at 1,423 open calls. And as of today, we get these reports from our City Power colleagues, thank you very much, every single morning. That this morning, EM, we are looking at 812 open calls. 278, that's longer than 24 hours. So if you understand the magnitude of the number of open calls, City Power has to deal with the limited technical resources, the spare parts that we don't have anymore, that we are continuously have to buy because of vandalism and theft. I think City Power has done a marvelous job in ensuring that we get to these outages, but we certainly can do more. We're here not to, pat ourselves on the back and say we're happy with these numbers. We'll make sure that these turnaround time improve. Although there is a service level agreement between the city and City Power in terms of turnaround times, but we want to ensure that we get to every single fault as quickly as we can. See, if I could ask you just to...
Thank you. Yes, unfortunately with load shedding, some delays do come about, simply because unfortunately for us as City Power, we don't do this remotely or automatically in terms of a system. In most parts, it means our technicians have to be on the ground to do the manual switch on and switch off. And unfortunately as well, this is compounded by the age of our infrastructure, that we tend to have quite a lot of equipment failure, unfortunately. So when you were supposed to be on at 10 o'clock exactly, there is equipment failure, unfortunately, and sometimes you'll then be back on maybe 30 minutes later or an hour later. It is for that reason that we need, I think, to create a shared understanding that as long as there's load shedding, a lot will definitely go wrong. But what we've done on our side as well is we've increased the number of technicians from our side because we also realize that we're not going to be able to renew our infrastructure in a year. It may take us maybe 7 years. So we need to have an operating model that allows us to respond to what we have at the moment. So we've increased the number of technicians so that we can be able to service our residents a bit better. Now, in terms of the consulate, at no point do we wish to cause an international or a diplomatic issue. We wouldn't want to do that in any way whatsoever. I think ours is just to ensure that we get the revenue so that we can actually give them a very good service. And I think the mayor's office will definitely be responding to them. But we are very thankful that they came to our offices and they paid us yesterday. So at this point in time, they don't owe us. They have paid us, and we're thankful for that.
Thank you very much. Executive Mayor, closing comments.
Thank you, Mabina, and thank you, colleagues, for coming through. As you know, yes, we do face, I think, 3 motions of no confidence. It's ridiculous, but it's happening. We've survived so many, and we're really hopeful that we will live to serve yet another day. As you can see, there are great plans. These plans rely on us on the one hand, rely on a strong administration, and as you can see, we've got capable officials who are committed to resolving the issues and challenges of our residents, but they also rely on our residents and various other stakeholders. I'd like to again appeal to residents to pay their rates and taxes. It's important because that's one area where we at least have control, where the politics is not at play, and we can bring that money in and hopefully resolve your issues. Load shedding has been painful for all of us. We all experience it. And if we work together, we pull together, we can resolve it. 6 months, City Power is saying they would be able to roll out this plan, and we'd be able to offset 3 stages of load shedding. That would make a huge difference to our lived experiences. So let's take collective responsibility and do our part and make sure we contribute towards the realization of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ian. Colleagues, thank you for your time. We will see you on the floor of the Constance Wapela Council Chamber as we debate the affairs of state, motion of no confidence in this capable government, a motion of no confidence against the Speaker, as well as other important issues that face the residents of Johannesburg. The statement will be in your inbox shortly. Thank you.
We are going to